Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, faculty and staff, gentlemen of the Corps of Cadets, and veterans of our proud nation, welcome to the annual Fishburne Military School Veterans Day ceremony. On this day, we will offer our heartfelt respects to all veterans who have honored our country with their service, and in some cases, with their lives. We will go on to pay particular tribute to those alumni of Fishburne who have given their lives in the service of their country. Finally, we will honor the memory of Professor James Abbott Fishburne, the founder of our school, who passed away on the 11th of November, 1921. At this time, Colonel Morrison will introduce the guest speaker.
Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me a great deal of pleasure to introduce to you Sergeant First Class Barrett Overton. Sergeant First Class Barrett Overton is a native of Camden County, North Carolina, and is a 1993 graduate of Fishburne Military School. Sergeant Overton entered the United States Army in March of 2000. He is a graduate of the Advanced NCO Academy. Sergeant Overton's assignments include tours with the 20th Engineer Brigade, the 1st and 504 Parachute Infantry Regiments, Headquarters Company 82nd Airborne Division, Headquarters Company 1st Brigade Combat Team, and the Joint Communications Unit at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. He has served in many different leadership positions, to include Battalion Communications Chief, Brigade Communications Chief, Special Operations Communicator, and his current assignment as a Special Operations Communication Detachment Chief. His military education includes basic airborne school, jump master course, and survival, evasion, resistance, and escape courses. Sergeant Overton's awards and decorations include the Bronze Star Medal, Joint Service Commendation Medal, Army Commendation Medal, Army Achievement Medal, the Afghanistan Campaign Medal with Campaign Star, and the Iraq Campaign Medal with Campaign Star, as well as the Combat Action Badge. Sergeant First Class Overton's foreign awards include Polish and Chilean parachutist badges. Sergeant First Class Overton is married to his lovely wife of 17 years, Nicole Overton, and they have 2 boys, Fishburne Cadet Staff Sergeant Gavin Overton, age 16, and Bryson Overton, age 12. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Sergeant First Class Overton.
– 2014-2015 Cadet Corps, Mr. Yunt, Colonel Morrison, Mr. LaFlock, Mrs. Johnson, Colonel Baranek, Colonel Gunn, Colonel Hunt, Colonel Hollowell, Colonel Cedar. Good morning. I would like to first thank you for inviting me here today to talk to you about my time as a Fishburne Cadet, as an American soldier, and as a father of a current Fishburne Cadet. Once upon a time, I stood where you're standing right now. It is truly an honor to stand before you today. I assure you that public speaking in this capacity is not my best quality. However, pontificating on a soapbox about things I hold near and dear to my heart is something I am familiar with. I will try to leave you with something to remember this day. As a cadet at Fishburne, I addressed the Cadet Corps as the President of the Honor Council, here in the quadrangle, sometimes in the chapel, and on a smaller scale during Honor Council hearings. As a Charlie Company First Sergeant, I would stand in the center of the quad with the Battalion Sergeant Major and give direction to the Corps cadets throughout the week's activities, formations, and at taps. As a Charlie Company Commander, I would give direction to my fellow cadets from the 3rd floor stoop as they scurried about between periods of study hall, inspect their rooms before they had to have their lights out for the next day. When I came to Fishburne in the fall of 1989, I was much like many of you, way too young to realize what I was getting myself into. But I knew I wanted to be a part of something something special, something different, and something valuable. I spent the first 14 years of my life growing up on a farm in northeastern North Carolina. My mother, a high school teacher, and for many years over, a state finalist as a basketball, volleyball, and softball coach. My father, the farmer, who seemed to have a work ethic that I could only hope to one day have, inspired me to be tough, honest, and hardworking. As a young man, I watched my father and mother serve the community in many ways. My mother inspired generations of athletes. Her drive to compete and win was only rivaled by her desire to make sure that my two brothers and I had what we needed to be successful. My father served on the County Board of Education as a member and as a chairman for many years. As a child, I was always inspired by the people that revered my parents as leaders in the community. Everywhere we went, people always treated both my parents with the utmost dignity and respect. I wanted that for myself. As I rolled into my teenage years, I guess I realized that I needed to do something above and beyond the normal high school experience, which ultimately brought me through that archway. Just like you, I carefully crossed the threshold that brought me inside these four walls. During my first few weeks here, I worked simply to keep my head above water, figure out which uniform to wear on what day, how to get to places on time, and don't fail. I was awestruck by the magnitude of everything. I was 14 years old and had the maturity level of a 10-year-old. On the farm, I could operate most any piece of equipment, and I feared no animal. I understood life on the farm. I was at home in the woods, hunting, trapping, fishing by myself or with my brothers and friends. The day I walked through that archway, I was legitimately scared, intimidated, and within a few days, homesick. It didn't take long to realize that I was no longer in rural North Carolina. I soon realized that I was among people from many different upbringings, cultures, religions, countries, and for me it took quite some time to figure out how to act among them. I made a few friends during my first days here as a new cadet. It was pretty easy. We were all in the same boat, hating life. Upperclassmen yelled at us all the time. We used to have to hit the wall when traversing up stairwells. So upperclassmen, and I think you guys called them old men, could pass by. It was amazing that we new cadets made it anywhere on time. Every time I found myself going up a flight of stairs, I would immediately hear a resounding, "Hit the wall, rat." I guess the first thing I learned was to be humble. I have so many stories that cover my 4 years here at Fishburne that will reinforce what I'm about to explain to you today. Maybe in a different form, I will share more of those stories, as they are not appropriate for this setting and too long. Though many of them did come with enormous and priceless life lessons. I will tell you a few anecdotes that will help reinforce my message. Excuse me. I remember meeting Mrs. Johnson for the first time as soon as I arrived at school. I was relieved I had someone to comfort me when I missed home or just needed to talk. Over the years, more than anything, Mrs. Johnson would teach me what it meant to be a leader: compassion. I remember being in the presence of Colonel Young and was inspired by his wisdom, his sense of humor, and his unwavering determination to teach cadets what it meant to live with dignity, honor, and respect. I did not really develop a personal relationship with Colonel Young until I was a senior, when he and I spent time together in class and on the Honor Council. When I was a junior in the Charlie Company First Sergeant, I was serving my first Sergeant of the Guard duty. I don't know if you guys still do this, but the Sergeant of the Guard and Officer of the Day would go around at the beginning of every class and take attendance. When you graced Colonel Young's class for the first time as the Sergeant of the Guard, he would quiz you with random trivia, and depending on how you conducted yourself during his interrogation, you may leave his classroom through the door, or you may be required to crawl out the window. As you did not rate entry or departure through his sacred classroom door. He would literally lock the door behind you when you entered to take the attendance. That day, I left the classroom through the door. Later on, somebody told me that he rarely let that happen, but for some reason, he liked my demeanor. Later in my senior year, I actually spoke to Colonel Young about the tradition he had established that spanned all the way back before Colonel Morrison was a cadet here, which was a long time ago. Colonel Young only meant to instill confidence, a sense of honor, dignity, and respect to every cadet that crossed the threshold of his classroom. During my senior year, I was serving as the officer of the day and entered Colonel Young's classroom to receive the report and ended up exiting through the window. Why did he do that to me? In a nutshell, he caught me slipping. I entered his classroom thinking I was free and clear of his interrogation and could just take a lackadaisical performance of my duty. He quickly reminded me that was not the case. The best part of the life lesson is he never had to explain to me why he made me exit through the window. I knew why. Duty. As an officer in the Cadet Corps, I was charged with being professional, dignified, and most of all, respectful. I never disrespected Colonel Young, but I disrespected his classroom, I disrespected the rank on my collar, and most of all, I failed to do my duty as the officer of the day, which was to enter the classroom, snap to attention, salute, and receive the report. I remember the first time I met Mr. J.B. Young. I can remember thinking, who is this man? What is he doing here all the time, and why is he always so happy? More than anything, I wondered why he dressed like Mark Twain, and why did the cadets call him by his first name? Here's what I soon realized about Mr. Young. He was and still is an American hero. And years after I graduated, it came to me that if more Americans lived like he lived, we would be better off. The strength of character, dignity, respect, and honor by which Mr. Young has served Fishburne, the city of Waynesboro, and the Commonwealth of Virginia throughout his life will never be rivaled. But I hope many people continue to do so. Mr. Young taught me loyalty and selfless service. I met Colonel Cedar when I in process of school my first day as a new cadet. He addressed me as Mr. Overton. And he did every day until I graduated. Though I don't believe I had him as an instructor until I was a sophomore, Colonel Cedar struck fear into me with his chiseled tone and his academic demands of nothing less than greatness. Between classes, he would stand over there between classrooms 3 and 4 like a pillar and monitor the cadets as they rushed to their next class. He would offer tidbits of discipline to cadets who needed little extra between classes. As an instructor, Colonel Cedar gave me everything I needed to know to be successful in class and in life. He taught me how to read history, how to do research well, and how to write well. Like most complicated processes, it may have taken me a few tries, but I caught on. More than anything, over the 4 years I spent at Fishburne, I turned to Colonel Cedar for advice on some of the most complicated leadership challenges. In one case, which I want to discuss today, I was Charlie Company First Sergeant, once again. I was in charge of police call that day. Being a little young and naive, I decided to get on the case of one of the foreign students for not doing his part and participating in police call. I upset the young man by mocking his culture. Colonel Cedar later explained to me that day, between those two classrooms, why I failed to inspire the young man to do what needed to be done. I failed to inspire him. Not only that, I disrespected his culture. I never forgot that lesson I learned that day, and a few days later I apologized to the young man and asked for his forgiveness. Surprisingly, the young man smiled and forgave me. From that day on, I vowed to never treat anyone like that again, and to become culturally aware as I possibly could of the people around me. Colonel Cedar taught me respect. Not only that day, but every day I was in his presence. Nothing less than respect. Captain Morrison. I met Captain Morrison during my first day in classes my freshman year. Captain Morrison taught freshman science in classroom 4, right over there. I think it was 5, that would be correct. You were really young then. Just like he does now, Captain Morrison gave every cadet who came into his presence time. If there's one thing you can give to the people that you're trying to inspire and influence to greatness, give them your time. As I mentioned before, I spent 4 years here at Fishburne. Those 4 years were some of the best years of my life. How many times have you heard from alumni of this school that very message? I hope you realize we are not lying. When I graduated from here, I went to college, and I was once again a little scared and intimidated. Sticking to my guns with the basic values taught to me by my parents, by the relationships I had developed and nurtured here at Fishburne, and through the council of friends, I survived. After college, I got married, and 2 years later, I joined the Army. Being a soldier fit me like a broken-in old shoe. Once again, I found myself in a well-disciplined organization surrounded by people who had a common goal of achieving nothing less than greatness, embracing the values that had always kept me straight, grounded, and able to hold my head high. I have moved up through the NCO ranks of the Army relatively fast. I compete this year for Master Sergeant, and I have my sights set on Sergeant Major. One thing is for certain, I will continue to recreate myself and have new beginnings that will scare and intimidate me as I move forward in my life and my career. You too will have to do the same as you move forward this year, and will continue to do so as your career in whatever you decide to do moves forward. As you go forward today, as you stop and honor and recognize our American veterans, keep those close to your heart, the values that make this institution great, the same values that make the American military great. I want to close by reciting a quote from a great American veteran, Vice Admiral James Bond Stockdale, prisoner of war, Medal of Honor recipient. Quote, "Integrity is one of those words which many people keep in their desk drawer labeled too hard. It's not a topic for the dinner table or cocktail parties. You can't buy it and you can't sell it. When supported with education, a person's integrity can give him something to rely on when his perspective seems to blur, when the rules and principles seem to waver, and when you're faced with the hard choices of right and wrong. I look forward to meeting each and every one of you as time goes on. I am honored to stand before you today. In closing, keep your values on your sleeve and your emotions close to your heart. Live by them and die by them. Thank you very much.